Alright guys, if you're deciding whether you should vote or whether it's just gonna be a waste of your time, I just found something that explains why you need to vote this November 19 better than anything else I've seen so far. So this Twitter user managed to compile every single piece of statistic from the last 3 general elections in Malaysia, and he made some pretty incredible discoveries that blew my freaking mind. What you're looking at here is a chart of all the seats in parliament and the margin or percentage by which the candidate in those seats won by. So the areas in darker green are the seats where candidates won by a larger percentage, and then the areas in lighter green are seats where candidates won by a smaller one. For example, in Rembau Negeri Sembilan, Kerajaan got 36,000 votes while his runner-up got just under 32,000, meaning Khairi had a majority of more than 4,000 votes, which was less than 6% of the total votes that were cast in the area, which is actually not that big a margin. Or for example, in Kimani Sabah, the candidate for BN won close to 12,000 votes while his runner-up got this much, meaning his majority was just 156 votes or 0.6%, which you guys probably follow more than 156 people on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok. Now this chart in red shows the seats across Malaysia where the number of people who didn't vote was greater than the majority that seat was won by. So for example, in Kota Baru, Kelantan, the candidate from PAS beat the candidate from Harapan by almost 6,000 votes, but the seat had over 20,000 voters who didn't show up. Meanwhile, in Keningau Sabah, the winning candidate won by 45 votes. 45! That's the size of a classroom in an underfunded government school in Malaysia. Meanwhile, in that same constituency, over 10,000 voters didn't show up, meaning if less than 1% of the voters who didn't show up did, the result could have gone totally different. And what's wild about this chart is, seats like the ones I just mentioned aren't the minority. In fact, in GE14, over 60% of seats had more people who didn't show up to vote than the number of votes that seat was actually won by. This shows why your vote does in fact matter and what you can do just by showing up. So if anyone tells you that there's no point to voting or it won't make any difference even if you do, show them this to shut them the fuck up, because really, your vote is your basic human right, and anyone who tells you not to vote or wants to make it difficult or discourage you from voting is pretty much trying to take that right from you. Remember, Barisan Nasional, who now formed this government along with Bersatu and PAS in Perikatan Nasional, decided to hold this election in November despite experts warning them about the risk of floods. And they did the same thing in 2020 when they held the Sabah elections during the height of the COVID pandemic, because as many have pointed out, they're more concerned with protecting the corrupt leaders than they actually are protecting the freaking people. By not showing up to vote, you're effectively agreeing with them by saying, oh yeah, whatever, take my rights, I don't care, and letting them do what they want because they know they can count on your ass not to fight back. So if there's anything you take away from this November 19, get out and vote. Tell your friends, tell your family to get out and vote. And if you still have doubts about how you should vote, the only question I want you to think about is, if a party